I'm so glad to be invited back to this weekend's New Harmony Appraisal Fair and Antique Show, but there's so much that goes on in this town on this weekend. We're going to show you a bunch of it from last year to whet your appetite for this year. We're even invited to a party, so come on, let's go. We're at morning of the Antique Show, Appraisal Fair and Sale in New Harmony, Indiana, and there's the gymnasium with its great clock tower right behind me. I'm going to flip the camera so you can see what's going on out on the street. Everyone's just getting up and getting started here. We don't open for over another hour, but I can show you the town. Such a neat place New Harmony is. The town started as a communal living experiment.
Well, these made a lousy cup of coffee, but they're really cool looking, and this is only $95. You can mix chocolate, tea, coffee, cream, sugar, and water. And if you did all of that, it would taste like watered down coffee.
Here is a fun booth. They've got a lot of fun and colorful stuff and things that I know I like. So I'm going to take a little time here. This is Hudapal beer, this big chalk piece here from the 50s. Julia is a competitor of Miller Studio. We think Miller Studio made all the chalkware, but that's not true because here's one in the box by another company. And at $8, that seems like a good price. They have some Peggy Brown big little books, and this is when they started the thing where you flip the corners. Now that wore out the books pretty well, so when you're buying these, you want to make sure that some kid didn't flip the corners to death. But it's cool that they were starting to do that then. It makes them a little more interesting. And you'd flip the corner and there'd be this little scene in the side that would move like a moving picture where it would run or jump or do strange things. Weller Oak Leaf for $25 there. Good morning. Lots of typewriter ribbons. We know who would like these. I wish I knew what she collected and already had, because I might pick her up a few if I were talking about Katie at Vintage and Vinyl on YouTube. She definitely loves the typewriter ribbon tins and did a nice little program on her channel about them at one point. This poodle is an English guy. This one is a company called Silvac, and that's a name we don't see that much in the United States. I seem to see it more up in Canada. But the piece that I want and am going to buy is this one for $10. It's folded over asymmetrically, but I kind of like that. This is Viking Epic. And
actually, you come at 2 o'clock and we'll talk money.
You got a deal. Yeah, 2 o'clock's when it's supposed to rain, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Indian River. I used to live on the Indian River, or very close to it, in Florida. There's a really fun chuck wagon in the back. That's the Roy Rogers chuck wagon. The Roy Rogers chuck wagon. Say that 3 times fast. 1950s. It's got Roy Rogers fabric on the top, and it is priced at $260. This would have been made by the Hill brothers in Connecticut. And they have the bell on the hill because a lot of their toys were bell toys where they would ring a bell as they drove around. Pretty purple on this 1960s or early 70s hen-on nest. And then you see the reverse in the slag glass here. The Westmoreland in the deep purple is $50 because that's a hard color to get. This, I believe, is also Westmoreland, and it's also priced at $50. But the one I like in the middle is this little chicken bank here. And there's a couple more Westmoreland. Again, the purple slag in the back is going to be more desirable. Well, harder to find at least. Desirable is all relative to what you like, because this guy looks more like a lot of people have in their kitchen, but you see more of them. Under here, again, another really wonderful piece of early 1900s pattern glass for only $10 with the opalescent edge. Again, these screens do not all fluoresce. I tried my black light on it and it just doesn't glow. The one next to it glows. Notice there's a little bit more yellow cast to the one next to it, this Depression era one. That yellow cast is what was caused by the uranium in the glass. This doesn't have it, so it's a similar color of green, but it's a little more minty and it does not glow under a black light.
This guy's definitely got some fun stuff and some cool stuff. You can see him sitting over on the bench there. I like this one, the old wooden bucket bank that is advertising a tank company.
Now this is priced at $175, which is kind of the going rate for these now, but these old double sinks are very popular to sell for people who have parties because they use them outdoors. They put ice in them, they put bottles in them, And it's actually a really convenient thing because they can roll all that weight around without having to carry things. So it's actually a really cool thing for that type of a setting. Now, there are some people who still use them as wash basins also, of course. And here's a dollar table. Now, I'm not saying you're going to find anything amazing on the dollar table, but for $1, you might find something that you could make a really good profit on. Just sell it for $2 and you've doubled your money, and then you go up from there. This one's kind of cute down the hatch. That's an older 1960s shot glass. Those always sell, so I'll take that for $1. Never drink water. That's another one that we see from that era. The Ozarks Hillbilly and the Call of the Wild Museum in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. That sounds interesting. Here's another one out of this series. Here's Mud in Your Eye. All those old drinking expressions brought to life very literally. The Reversing Falls. This is a place I've always wanted to see up in New Brunswick. I guess when the tide goes in and out, the falls go backwards. And that sounds really cool. Very partial to that candy jar in the dots. I especially like it in the purple and the capri blue. Next to it is an interesting tricolor hall china, late 50s, early 60s casserole dish. Isn't that a great pattern with the blue handle and the gray top and the white and pink? They had to be very careful about how they laid the glaze over that white body to get that to do that. To the left of that is a Camargue piece with that interesting odd elongated Art Deco shape in the blue. I like the big apothecary vase here. $55. This would have been a display out of an old apothecary, and this one is by, it looks like it's Gilman Brothers. $55 on that. Store display stuff is good, and it does sell higher because there aren't that many of these pieces. They just made enough for the stores to have. Cute little inkwell here. And that is priced at $12. That seems like a buy. Just an interesting variety of stuff. This is pretty rusty and crusty, but it is a neat old hood ornament. These are these 1930s and 40s lights that you hang over your bed for reading at night. You'd hang it off the back of the headboard.
The Real Fun of Driving by Chrysler Corporation. That's supposed to be a Dodge Dart on the left. It's funny. They were copying the way Ramblers look, and it almost looks like one, but then I just noticed that's the Plymouth next to it. So those are all Chrysler products. That's neat. Oh, I see. So Chrysler put this out for new drivers to get them interested, but also said that they would learn a little bit about not doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is neat.
Well, here we go. This space has a whole lot of stuff. And we're going to take a look and see if any of this stuff needs to be my stuff, because they sure have a selection and their prices are good. Little gas measuring can is $12. That looks like a 1920s or 30s item there. It looks like it's for using for your iron. Because yes, they did have gas irons for people who still didn't have electricity at that time. Here's a neat old sad iron. It's $4, but look at this. This is definitely something different. Now the handle's pretty cute, which is why they're giving such a good deal, but the base is neat. American Electric Heating Company of Detroit, USA. And that would have plugged in right there. This is a very, very early electrical iron that they basically took a sad iron and put a cord on it. That's how it worked. That is pretty cool. Some days you just look all out of proportion. This appears to be some sort of a funhouse mirror on a small scale, a child size, because look how long my hand is compared to the rest of me. I love this kind of stuff. I wonder how much this is. Looks like it says $5. I wonder if it's supposed to not be a funhouse mirror and it just isn't a very good mirror. Because it says Kaplan Quality Classroom, so I think that maybe this was something that was supposed to be used for kids. But it's definitely funny, and I think that I might just get it anyway.
Don't quote me on it, but I think it's Roseville Ram's Bottom in Ohio. I think it's a salesman sample.
I do recognize it as Robinson Ramsbottom. I agree with you that that's who it is, and I've never seen one this size. That's so cool. And I doubt it has any markings because their stuff really didn't back that much.
Look at this neat piece. This is going to be from about 1900. It's American oak, and it is the old Hayes Creamer, it says, and you can see the ghost paint on there.
Oh my gosh.
It is really cool that somebody sat there and made all of this just as a craft project for themselves, but it's great. It's like a fire tower or a TV tower or oil derrick. Yeah, that's awesome. Here's something I don't see too often. I think I would see more, which are these plastic flowers made in Hong Kong. They did glass versions of these, and of course those tended to break really easily, so then they started making the plastic versions, and I think they're really neat. And $10 for the singles and $25 for the three, that's not bad. I think that could be fun to make into something. Well, there's blotters and then there's blotters. These are a lot of pinup blotters from the 1940s, as well as cards and various things. Obviously, they figured they were selling to people who enjoyed looking at these lovely ladies in less than full dress. $10 to $15 each on those now. These are tobacco tags. These are pretty collectible. Some of them are rather valuable depending on the maker, but they would put these on the outside of the bales of tobacco so that you knew what brand you were getting. And these are priced starting at about $10. Well, the Humboldt twins were a small Midwestern singing combo back in the 50s and 60s, and they're made out of masonite as their little lectern with the hole for the microphone. You've got room for your sheet music. This would have been a neat little fold-up thing they could just take to a performance anywhere they went. They've thrown some very colorful quilts over their stuff. So we'll see more as people get here and start getting open. But I'm the early bird today, so I'm going to sneak around and see what I can see. A lot of stuff was put away overnight, so you're only going to see what's been left out. But there are some really fun things here. That looks like a flue cover. And there's the old firehouse, such a great building. And I love that they've got the town's old fire truck parked in front of it for this event. They've got a bunch of things that have spilled out onto the sidewalk here under their tent, including a lot of advertising and things, because that's what they carry. They're under new ownership, and they're doing pretty much the same thing that the previous owners did, except as the previous owner said, they're doing it on steroids. Apparently they are just full of signs, and they've really merchandised it well. And hopefully I'll be able to get in here later this afternoon and show you the inside. They're not open yet. Secondhand, January 1932. And the 30s secondhand became a thing to get. And in some ways, that got a lot of people collecting. There's the gymnasium where I'm doing the appraisals across the street, and I just wanted to take a closer look at this old fire truck. Isn't this amazing? The old copper tanks. This is going to be from sometime about 1920. It is the REO Speedwagon, and it says so right there. And it hasn't been driven all that much. Fortunately, there haven't been a lot of fires in New Harmony over the years, apparently. Still, this one has been gussied up and is retired now. Okay, so let's see what Firehouse Antiques looks like now. And wow, it looks great like it always did, but it's a little different the way it's set up. Look at this neat Imperial Esso service. If you were in Canada, this would have been the Esso uniform that you would have seen at the gas station. Priced at $265. This looks like something from about 1960. They have some fun stuff in showcases here. But of course, the thing that's the most remarkable is this old flashing arrow from outside of some business, probably a motel or a cafe, roadside Americana from the 1940s or 50s. So you actually found out of the old lumber place, huh?
Yeah, we did that. We reused all that wood. And we stripped up the painted brick flooring they had. And what we found when we did it over here, and we decided to leave it because of it, is where the old fire trucks would leak oil.
Oh, that's actually really neat, though.
Yeah, so we left it. We thought It was part of the building. It had to be there.
Yeah, that actually, of course, it's the old firehouse. That makes perfect sense. I love it.
It's actually from the old fire truck that we had out in front of the shop.
Oh, the one, the REO Speedwagon. Wow, it's just great. Well, congratulations on the shop. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and it looks terrific.
I appreciate it. We absolutely love it.
Yeah,
Happy to have it.
it is so much fun, isn't it?
It really is.
Oh gosh, the funeral sign. I found one of these in Kentucky when I was traveling to the West Coast for a show, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to get it all in the luggage, and I was able to check through the base, but I had to unscrew the top, so I walk on with this funeral parlor sign. Nobody sat next to me. It was the best thing. I kind of think I want to take it everywhere I go.
For real. That's a good way to keep people at their distance. It's a great thing, and
And this is really cool. This is Boppa Bear by Marks. This is when they're starting towards their plastic toys around mid-60s when the safety standards started to change. And this is complete in the box. What a great graphic. And you would shoot rubber tip darts. No minors served, and out the door he goes. The cop would be hauling him out, except the bartender did it all for him. Cute little pyrography glove box there. A nice Taza, $35 is a good price. I've sold that same one for $45. Recently, we learned that the word squaw is a derogatory term, and a lot of us for the first time heard the reason why, because it refers to female anatomy. So we don't use that word anymore, and that makes this kind of interesting, plus the fact that they're showing the Chippewa making birch canoes. A lot of photos were taken in the 1890s because they realized we had successfully vanquished Native Americans to the point where we were losing all of that culture, and the way that they lived was fading, and we better capture it fast for posterity's sake. Someone went to Milan and had to have their little hotel logo on it. How neat. And you know, there's a picture out there somewhere that somebody took of that hotel with this camera. Once basketball became a professional sport in 1948, toys related to basketball started to become a more popular item. And here we have the Marks basketball game where you had to move the guy around the court and then take your shot. You don't see a lot of these days. Priced at $125. That actually seems like a pretty reasonable price for what it is. Crowning the May Queen by Pisani in St. Louis. Well, what is this about? Let's see. This says copyright 1896. It's selling complexion powder, and it's showing all of these people who have freckles and things that are keeping them from getting where they want in life. And then they use the product, and everything is wonderful, except that now they have a headache and neuralgia, and they need Dr. Adolph's Hedine. These are collected by a lot of the same folks who like the trade cards from that era, and they're pretty cool. And then in the back room here, they've got all of these old signs. I think these are from New Harmony. The old street signs that were replaced in a lot of towns over the last 40 or 50 years. And boy, they do have signs galore here. I have to say, I'm marveling at how many signs there are, and in awe and slightly envious, because I sure don't find this quantity, and they've got some really good ones. I mean, a lot of these are selling for over $1,000 each these days. Here's an old Texaco sign, very old. You can tell because of the green Texaco T, and because it refers to the Texas company. Fresh and sparkling restrooms are definitely something that people really went out of their way to advertise back in the 60s and 70s. And they even have Jadeite, and they've got real Jadeite. And some slightly more difficult finds, especially the Philby top on this. Philby being the pattern on the big refrigerator jar there. That's not easy to find. And of course, a lot of people don't recognize that the vases are Fire King Jadeite because they're not marked as such, but they are the real deal. It's one of the first pieces in the line that they made. Very pretty Owens Jeweler sign back there with that interesting three-dimensional looking aspect because of the way that they did the gold texturing on the background. Cool old whiskey display here. Get hold of a real drink of whiskey. And it's even got the Yellowstone bottle out of Louisville, Kentucky. It's important to have the right bottle with these. A lot of times you find them without because they would sell the bottles out of the display, or they were broken or separated years ago. But if you have the right bottle with the display, it makes a big difference in the value. This is really neat, and it's got not just the mobile gas maps, but the original holder for them. This is something that you just don't see often. In fact, I've never actually seen one up close before. It's got a 1957 vintage Chrysler product on the front of it, so that gives you an idea of its age. Although I think that the map holder is probably 10 years older than that. And we've got a case of various things from milk bottles to soda bottles, and one that's really cute is the brownie here. The brownie looks suspiciously like Dopey from the Seven Dwarfs, and that's not a coincidence. But brownies were actually a elfin figure that were collectible in their own right before Walt Disney came up with any of that. Really cool. One thing I really like is that Cindy mixes things in. You've got all these primitives, and then you have these really cool rocket banks, and I love the rocket banks. And I have never seen this one. Actually, I can't believe I've never seen this one. I see these two a lot, but I have never seen the one with the globe on top.
And if you ever find this one and it says World's Fair, it's like
Big
quadruple.
money.
Yeah, like $250 or so on eBay. So if it just says a bank, and you know, of course, local is always better. This is Michigan City, which is north.
Right.
So, you know, 65, and I would probably come off that some.
But it's a very cool piece, and that's a fair price for that.
Yeah, I try to find the middle, you know.
Yeah. These seem to be the most common, and they always are missing that red
tip.
The red tip. Yeah, every kid broke them out. Oh, that one comes with money. Well, you might get
There's your discount.
you might get your money back. Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is really neat. This other one with Moon is the destination, and I have not seen this. Illinois Junior Achievement Bank. I mean, they'd have slapped anything on there, of course, but it is.
Yep. Ever
You've
found
got.
a little thing of stickers. Like if you found
Oh,
stickers.
I haven't, but I know
Yeah.
they exist, and that you can actually put the stickers on the old stuff that has lost
I
theirs.
like here's the where you get the money out, which is nice.
Yeah, that's really neat too. Actually, I've just never seen that style. I love that one. This is one of a pair of andirons, but in copper, and what a neat figure. I love that line. It's priced at $75. And here's how you can reach them now. So if you have lost track of the Smothermans, well, you can see them at the barn, and they will be happy to get an appointment with you. And she also was always big on corbels, and I noticed she's got a neat set under there, so they haven't given that up either. And these are the perfect chicks because they don't need much. The other thing that's really cool is the way this collection of gristmill stones from the local area form these steps into the side door of the barn. Pretty clever, and well, if you have a collection like this, you can probably leave it outside okay. All right, so I have just entered a really cool place. They are having a soiree for the dealers, and they've invited me. This is the after party for day one, and it is in Jeff and Cindy Smotherman's barn, which they open up for selling. So this stuff you're going to see is for sale, and it's really cool, and it looks great in here. This is why people buy old signs. It has been really hot today, so this is the best sign I've seen in this barn yet. Just look at this place. It's definitely got the feel that their store had when they had the Firehouse. But I have to say, it displays just as nicely here in the barn. I think it's just so much fun. They get really cool stuff. You know, they're in farm country, so they find a lot of farm sides, but they also really look for other things that kind of match the feeling, like racks and primitives and old crates. And then in the middle of it all, you've got this great little box full of toys and cool stuff. Look at the little Christmas spikes there with the mercury glass. Actually, I think that's a cross in there under that sleigh. A whole basket full of those neat yardsticks. And kind of the usual crockery and neat other things we see from farms, minnow barrels. When the unions were seen as the way to get to be middle class in the United States, and they were very effective in that for a long time. Collective bargaining, union signs, and membership signs were something you would see posted in probably about a quarter of all shops. And because of that, there are a lot of collectible signs from the unions from the 1950s and 60s around now, and a lot of people who are still involved with that are interested. Cindy really likes her corbels, so there are corbels for sale here. This is signed by a lot of Kentucky Wildcat basketball players, because the Wildcats are consistently, as you see, national champions and very good. At least in the last half of the 20th century, they won a bunch of national championships. So this is something that definitely would have a customer around here. And then, of course, because it is a barn, well, there have to be lots of old tools. I suspect a lot of this stuff was just sitting there, although this old scale with the weights, they may have brought that in because that's quite an impressive scale and a lot of impressive weights. Richardson Scale Company. That's got to be worth about $300 with all the weights. I hear crickets chirping up in the rafters. It is a great feel because it kind of feels like the kind of place you find this sort of stuff, except a lot better organized, and everything is really, really great. Oh, and there's even an upstairs. Here's the upstairs of the barn, and oh, it's got that old barn smell. It smells like old wood, old hay. They've scraped away other things that it might have smelled of long, long ago, so that part's good. They're kind enough to let me wander around their grounds while everyone else is out listening to the music. They've got a couple of local musicians playing. It's really nice. They put on quite a spread for the dealers and for me, and I really appreciate that. And they have put out a lovely barbecue for us, and boy, am I hungry. I don't usually eat meat, but this might be my time to break that diet because it does smell good. This is part of what's so fun about this business. I love the online community because I feel like we get to really talk a lot and get to know each other in that way, even more than we do when we just see each other at shows from time to time. But at the same time, it's sure fun to get together and do something like this too, and really get to break bread together and know each other. So it's just such a fun business. I really, really encourage those of you who are not coming out and doing the real world stuff in the antique and vintage community to maybe give it a shot, because you might find that being around a bunch of people with the same kind of interest that you have is a lot of fun. New Harmony Inn is quite pleasant inside, and they definitely carry this Spartan Shaker 19th century pine basic rustic design throughout the furnishings, and it's very charming and really very comfortable and clean and nice, and they have a nice restaurant on site, so it's a great place and it's really quite lovely. One fun thing about doing the appraisal fairs is that oftentimes they're in conjunction with antique shows, and during my breaks I get to shop, and I did. This is my little haul from the day. And lest you say, oh, George is turning over a new leaf, everything he bought was small. Isn't that great? Well, there's a big old door in the back of my van that I'm not going to drag in here to show you. But I did get some really neat stuff. I went ahead and bought this necklace with that book chain because it's 1920s, it's Czechoslovakian, it's that great red color. It might actually be 30s even with that Chinese red, but it just had a good look. And I paid somewhere in the $30 range for that. Paid $10 for this one. She had several in stock. I stuck to the one that was the most well painted and looked like an exotic bird because they're more likely to sell. I only paid $1 a piece for the little tiny child's picture of the bird and for the little 1950s steamship pencil sharpener. I did go ahead and buy the what would now be considered very offensive stereo card, because I like the fact that it actually shows Native Americans doing what they did before everybody was settled onto reservations. This is the Chippewa. I got 2 Republican and 1 Democratic convention ticket from 1940. And you see Lincoln on the Republicans, and the Democrats just show the hall in Chicago next to the Capitol on the other side, because they were the incumbents. Speaking of Roosevelt, just Roosevelt. I bought some jewelry, mostly glittery, in the terms of little pins and brooches. I thought that these were just so fun because they had the Aurora stone. They're not anything really expensive, but they're just cute, and they're scissors, and someone who likes sewing will think those are great. It's something from the 60s. Actually, I think all of these are 1960s or 70s. The fall color one here, I'm still curious who the maker of that is. I'm going to try to do some research and see if I can attribute to someone, because it is interesting and different than you usually see. This is made in Austria with the wonderful rhinestones. And then this cute little pineapple with the turquoise stones. This one is signed. I'll have to look at who the signature is, but I believe it's art. The brooches and pins were between $7 and $10 each, which for that era in that condition is definitely a good price where you can make money as a reseller. Little money clip in the original box from the Mint in Las Vegas. They had other ones from the Mint for sale. They were not this one with the paint and the very vivid graphics, and they were selling for about $20 each. I'm hopeful that it's worth $30 to $35. It's an easy thing to ship, and I have customers for those at shows as well as online. This is really neat. It's a cigarette case with golfers on it and the trees incised in it. 1950s, great condition inside and out. And then I got these because I've sold the Cadillac accessories before, I think for $8 or $10. These top three are General Motors. It's for your Cadillac and for how to work the convertible. And then the maintenance log for the Lincoln Continental. You've got to figure that people who have expensive old cars and collect these are in the market for these booklets talking about their car. The Yardley is in perfect condition, full of its original talc. I paid under $10 for that. Talc tins are starting to be collectible. So all in all, a nice little gathering of merchandise, some things that'll definitely be saleable, and lots of small items, because right now I'm trying to regroup and get ready for my next big show, which is in Portland, Oregon, and I need to see what I have in large items, so I'm trying to stick to small purchases right now of neat things that I know will fit, because I have a van to fill and take west. Well, we had such a great time in New Harmony, and fortunately the time has come for everyone to go home. You can see the dealers are packing up behind me here. I had a great time at the appraisal fair. We found some really neat stuff, and we're able to make some people really happy by telling them more about their heirlooms. And in a few cases, we made people feel a little richer, and that's always fun too. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video, and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help, and we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.